After about 2 years of development, Cats Effect 3 has been released at the end of March this year. And by this time, most of the libraries from the type level ecosystem have been migrated to Cats Effect 3, so you can start using them in your applications. In this video, I'm going through how I migrated my own application, so you can follow along. You can see how I approached the issue. It's a very small application, so it didn't look like the same way I would approach a migration of something much bigger. But hopefully you can still learn something from here and see some tips that you can follow when you are migrating your own applications. If you haven't really looked at Cats Effect 3 yet, now is the perfect time to do it, to start building small applications or migrating your own stuff. So I hope this helps you and that you enjoyed the video. So here we go. Alright, so Scala Steward has created a pull request for me because my application is registered in Scala Steward. As you can see, not only the version of Cats Effect has changed, but we also got some changes in the source code. This is thanks to the Scala fix migration that was implemented for Cats Effect. Here's the information about what was applied. There's a separate commit for that, but the build doesn't pass. So I have this checked out here with these two commits. Let's see what's going on. So I'm going to open SBT, and I'm going to try to compile my project with SBT first. In fact, I'm not even going to try to compile it. I'm just going to try to run the update task so that it downloads all the dependencies. So let's wait for it to load. Okay, so we have SBT open. Now I'll run the update task. And this is not supposed to succeed. Of course, it didn't. So we got some error. And this basically says that we have a version conflict that is suspected to be binary incompatible. I know for a fact that it is. So this is something I clearly need to fix. So we are using both Cats Effect 3.1.1 and some 2.x versions. And here we can see which libraries pull in which version of Cats Effect. Well, we want to upgrade to the 3x versions, so I'll need to update all the libraries that are depending on 2.x. So here we have Monix Catnap. I don't have a direct dependency on that. It's being pulled in by something else. In fact, I think it's by Odin. So Odin also uses 2.3.1 and FS2 uses 2.5.1. I'm going to go with Odin first. Odin at this point doesn't really have a release for Cats Effect 3, but I have a local snapshot that I can use here. So the version I can use instead is, I'm going to replace all the versions. It's something like this. And if I reload my SBT build and run the update task again, we will see that the dependencies that Odin brought are no longer there. At least they are upgraded. So we only have Cats Effect 2.5.1 left. Also notice that this is from the core module, which failed the update task. And this is the module that all the other modules in this project depend on. So once we have fixed this module, we will start seeing errors from other modules as well. So let's try updating FS2 here. So the dependency on FS2 is right here. We have 2.5.6. I know the latest version is 2.3.04. Let's update, reload and then update. So now the core module is no longer a problem. We are seeing errors in the GitLab module. There are a couple of modules here. We have core, and then we have GitLab, which depends on core, and then we have PitGoal. This is like the main project, and it depends on both of these. So now we have to fix GitLab, and then we should start seeing problems from the root module, from PitGoal. So now that we're seeing errors from the GitLab module, let's fix that. So we have a dependency on, well, it's still Cats Effect causing problems. By the way, you only get this if you're on SBT 1.5 and above. This is pretty new. I'm on 1.5.3, so I'm getting that. So yeah, I have a dependency in GitLab, which is my module. The only problematic one is series. So series is a configuration library that I'm using here. I have dependencies on it in the main module as well. So I'm going to update both of them. Let me just make sure I get both like for real. So the latest version is 2.01. Let's do reload and update again. Okay, so now we got way more errors. This is because we got to the main module. We fixed the GitLab module, and now these errors are coming from the update task of the bitgal module. So I'm going to, well, slowly but steadily, we're gonna fix all of these. So all of these versions need to disappear. This is, by the way, FS2 now causing problems, not just cats effect. We have cats effect here. Let's take care of cats effect first. So we have, we need to update HTTP4S, procs, Vault, which I think comes from HTTP4S, this as well, and then STTP. So I'm going to go with HTTP4S first. So everything HTTP4S, just like from the HTTP4S org, I'm gonna change this to 0.23.0 This is the current version that that uses cats effect 3. It doesn't have a release yet. By the time you're watching this, it might. But I like to live dangerously, so I'm going to update to an unstable version just so that I can iterate more quickly. So that apparently fixed that part. Now let's see, we have cats effect here. We have versions 2.5.1 in procs and STTP. So I'm going to go with procs first. There's just one change I need to make. I think it's procs fs2-3. So the same version contains modules for both the old version of fs2 and cats effect, and the new versions of fs2 and cats effect. Now I need to remind you, well, something I haven't said before, fs2 does depend on cats effect, so it also had to make a new release. So we need to update both everywhere. So that did the trick. We need to take care of STTP now. So we have STTP, HTTP4S C2 backend. This is more obvious. We just need to do HTTP4S backend. And yeah, let's reload the build to see what else we need to change. Okay, apparently the update task is succeeding now. But I know for a fact that there's something else I need to change. And that is the Weaver framework, which is on 0.5.1, and I need to update to 0.7.3. There's one more thing I need to change. I'll go to the website to see what it is exactly. So Weaver is a test framework built on cats effect and FS2. And in the current version, to use it with cats effect, you need the Weaver cats module, and you need to define a test framework using this, using Weaver framework cats effect, and here we need to change to cats, and that should do it. So run the update task again. Of course, it should be working. I can try to compile my project, but I know that it won't work. So at this point, I can stop caring about SPT, and I can run the import in metals in my IDE. So when this completes, I will start seeing errors in my project. Actually, I could start seeing them already, but at this point, I can actually start fixing them. So it looks like the project was imported, and I can start looking at my errors. So let's see my files here. No errors so far, but I'll open maybe the main file, the main class, and we should be seeing errors very soon. Or if I go to the problems tab. Yeah, so I had a filter here. Without the filter, it's going to be better. So the first issue that we see is type compiler from FS2. So I know that this has changed. It is now fs2.compiler. Let's change all of these and save all the files if it didn't happen yet. Now there's one more from fs2. So concurrent queue, this has been moved to cats effect. So I can just remove that for now and add the usage of it. I'm going to depend on metals to complete it for me, to add the import for me. So the import is now cats effect stdq. I saved, and now we're gonna see some more issues. So NQ1, this has also been renamed. It's now offer. And DQ, this is more complicated because cats effect does not depend on fs2, so it cannot know about the stream type. So to go from a queue to a stream, we need to do something like stream from queue unterminated. This would be from queue non-terminated if I had a stream, like a queue that contains options of some type, and I want to finish the stream when a none is produced. But in this case, I just want an infinite stream. So I will do this. Now I have an implicit error because I need a functor of f, so I'm going to add that. Now let's look at the other errors. This was, by the way, in the core module. So looks like we don't have any more issues in the core module. This is from a library. Let's try to cascade compile so that the whole build is the whole project is built. Okay, so we're seeing errors in other places now. Actually, in the pitgal module, which is like the main module, because there are no changes in the GitLab module apparently. So let's fix them one by one. So here we have a missing object in the HTTP4S util package. It's case insensitive string. I know that this has been moved to the type level CI library, which is just a micro library that just contains the case insensitive string type. So I need to change that here and everywhere that we see case insensitive string. So here, CI string. And in the same file, we are seeing some other issues. So series has changed its type. It now has two type parameters. It has an effect type and the value type. So in my case, I don't really need any effect here because I'm not lifting any effects to a config value. I can use series.effect, and I'm going to do just that. So this is like no effects, the base type. This is very similar to the fs2.pure type, which is the effect type of pure streams. It's defined in pretty much the same way. So we're just gonna use that everywhere we see config value. And that should fix this file. Okay, so this file has been fixed. We can go to, maybe not application yet, let's go to project config. So here I'm importing some stuff from procs. I think I don't need to do that anymore at all. Or sorry, I can just import everything from the project, from the object procs. Previously I had to hide some imports, but in this version with fs2.3, we don't need to hide that because it's not exposed. So this file compiles now. We can go to, maybe not this yet, maybe not this. Let's see. Apparently it's just these 4 files. I'm going to go to this one. So this is the Odin and SLF4J interop. And in here, the changes are basically related to what changed in Odin, not what changed in Casifect specifically. I'm just going to remove what we had before for the fields that we had to implement in this class, and we'll see what else I need to implement. So it looks like I need a sync and a dispatcher. So I'm going to say just io.async for io, which is the async instance of io. You could also do something like async of io, and I think it would work as a sync of io. You cannot do just sync io because this would be a self-recursive definition, just something to keep in mind. It would just, I think it would be an infinite loop actually. So this can be a val, and I need one more thing, the dispatcher. And sadly, I'm going to have to do a hack here. Normally you'd get the dispatcher by saying dispatcher io, and this is a resource of IO. See my video about resource to see what that means. And you would do something like, use the dispatcher somehow inside the use block. But sadly here we need to return the dispatcher. So I'm going to have to do a trick. I'm going to call allocated, which unwraps the resource. So this returns just an IO of the dispatcher and then an IO of the cleanup of the dispatcher. I don't think I need to clean it up here actually. So I'm just going to call this and unsafe run sync. And I'm going to ignore the cancellation hook, the cleanup section. So I'm just going to take the first thing, which is the actual dispatcher. Now I will need to do something else. To do unsafe run sync nowadays, you need an IO runtime. So I'm going to import the global one. You should do this ideally in just a couple places, as few places as possible. This is a very specific case because it's interoperating with a Java library, SLF4J. So I'm allowed to do that in here, but normally you would rather not do that. So I will import Casifect unsafe implicits, and this should do the trick. Now I can remove these comments. So this is no longer necessary either. Let's see what else I need to fix. So I'm going to go to application. This is where all my dependencies are being wired up, so there's going to be plenty of of things to change. So concurrent effect is gone, Q is gone, it's been moved to cats effect. We can add the other import later. These metals errors are going to happen. Now this is just a package change, so this is now Blaze client instead. And I think we can go to the actual sources. So both of these types, concurrent effect and context shift, have been removed. If anything, I'm going to need an async here. So async is another typeclass from cats effect. The hierarchy of typeclasses has changed, so it has a slightly different role than it used to. But I know that I will need it to create like a Blaze client, for example. Here we have the queue, so I'm going to import the cats effect one. And then I have something like a channel from queue. It needs a functor. There is a functor in scope, but I think it just needs a more specific type. And because it takes two type parameters, I'm going to say f and event as well. Another thing I could do here is actually just expand this lambda. Okay, one more thing, we have a blocker here. I'm going to remove this parameter because you no longer need to pass a blocker. And that seems to be it, except we have this. This is the result of the Scala fix migration applied by Scala steward. This would previously be blocker f, but since blocker is no longer a thing in cats effect, we can just remove this line and unwrap the whole flat map. Now this file should be compiling, and I can go to, well, probably the most difficult one, my main class. So this is my IO app, my entry point to the application. So let's start with the imports. First, this is now Blaze server. Then we have the missing types that are no longer there, concurrent effect and effect. Finally, some implicits that we don't need anymore. So concurrent effect, context shift, temporal. This is also the result of the migration. It was timer before, but I don't think I need it anymore. So I'm just gonna remove it. Here I will need an async because Odin now requires an async. So I'll add that. And also this part is going to be quite difficult to change. So I'm just going to stop this out for now and leave it to do. I will fix it later. So then we have another concurrent effect, another temporal that I might not need. Here we need an async. So I think that also, yeah, async also includes temporal, so I don't need to depend on it directly. I can just require async and it will be passed here. This will create the server. And then we have some more implicits to remove. Let's try removing this temporal. But because I need async in make_logger, I will need async here as well. Okay, so now we have an ambiguous implicit. Because we have two instances of parallel, I think I just can remove this one and depend on cats effect producing the parallel instance for me based on this async instance. So apparently this fixed the compilation here. If I'm not mistaken, this is the whole project, at least the main section. Let's see if I need to change anything in the tests as well. So let's look at the errors here. Looks like I don't need to change anything, but just to be sure, I'm going to compile this with bloop. And yes, it's okay. So now I could run the tests if only I didn't know that they're not going to work because of this, for example. So let's clean up the imports with metals. And yeah, let's try to do this. So what I need here is I need a function k from f to io. And there are several ways I can do this. So my f is actually io, but at this point I don't have that information. I can do two things. I can use the dispatcher type to make this conversion, which will be quite a struggle because there is no built-in way to do this in cats effect yet, to make a function k like that. There is a ticket for that, so by the time you're watching this, it might be available. Link in the description or maybe on the video right now. You can follow that ticket and see if it gets updated by the time you need it. But for now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to accept a parameter of this. So run, let's go with something else because run is a thing in IO app. Let's call this eval effect f to io. And I'm going to call it here. By the way, I need to import the arrow type. And let's see, I still need to pass it to make logger, so I'm going to call it the same thing, eval effect, and I will take it from here. It's going to be an f to io. And finally, I have serve here, which works in the type of io. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make this a multiple parameter list function. So now I will be able to just say function k dot id, and this should work because this will be id of io. I can get something like this for every effect. In our case, it's io, so I don't need to do anything to evaluate that f to an io because it's the same thing. Okay, so now our project compiles, and there are some warnings, so let's fix them. I'll start with this. So we have an unnecessary defer instance. I'm just going to remove that, and I can probably remove the import as well. This is from the HTTP4S changes. I think it's in the auth method, which now takes just a monad, so we don't need a defer or sync instance. Let's look at the others. So apparently there is an issue somewhere here. This is in the test of main. Because I'm using the serve method here, so I'm going to do the same trick as in my main class. And yeah, this was supposed to be a separate argument list. So we have that. We can go back to the warnings. We have an unused import here. Just gonna clean that up. I don't think that was it. Actually, that was a stale warning from a previous compilation. I'm going to just recompile the whole workspace. Let me try that. Okay, so it all compiled. Let's see the remaining issues. So here I have an unused parameter, but there's actually something else here. So I had syntax for lifting an effect into a resource. Now it's no longer necessary because there is a syntax for this in cats effect. So I'm just going to update all the usages of these methods with the thing that is in cats effect. So now it's called to resource. And I need to import cats effect syntax or just implicits. And because I have that, which is right here, I can remove the import on prelude. Let's look at the other usages and do the same thing. We have one in the tests. So we have updated that. We can remove the import here. And that's actually it. The only other usage is in the other method. I can just stub this one out and remove the implicit. And let's see where the other method is used. Okay, I might have to recompile the workspace. So this sometimes happens with metal, so we just have to clean everything up or try again. The worst thing, like the worst case scenario is you can restart the whole metals instance and remove the bloop files. Just removing the bloop files can go a long way. So I'm just going to wait for that. For some reason, at some point, something doesn't work, we can always search by text. So I'm just going to fix these and hope that it's all of them. So I can use the same method actually. Thankfully, we already have that import. I can use the same method. I don't need like two different methods here because I'm not using the results of these resources anyway. They are ignored. So I will now remove the whole class. And now I have monad throw here and a type alias that is no longer necessary because cat provides this out of the box. So I'm going to look, I'm going to just remove it actually and see what breaks. So I'm going to cascade compile to make sure that all the sources are compiled. In the meantime, I'll remove this import, which is no longer necessary. And we have some issues. So in here, I have this import. I can replace it with cats monad throw. Another thing is I could depend on metals to help me do it, but right now it doesn't seem to be behaving very well, so I'm not going to do that. Then we have the string syntax from HTTP4S, which we're not supposed to use. We are supposed to use CI string directly. So I'll remove this. And maybe there's some import that I can remove. Yes, there is. And there's one more here. It's probably a stale one because I changed that already. So now I can do the final trick. I can remove the bloop files again. This is like the single surefire way to make sure that bloop has to compile everything all over again. Just remove all the directories in the bloop folder. Don't remove the whole folder or all the files in there, because you will have to import the build in metals or from SBT to bloop again, or from other build tools. And now I'm going to just compile the test module of the main project, and let's wait for that. So it looks like everything compiled. We don't have any warnings. Now there's one more thing you can do. Let me just reconnect again. There's one more thing you can do. Because Cast changed the type class hierarchy, you can look for places where now you're using too powerful type classes, and maybe see if you can use something less powerful. For example, I can look for usages of sync in my code, uppercase sync. And when I have, for example, here, sync is used to create a ref. Now you no longer need sync, you can just use ref.make, and this is the type class that allows you to create a ref without having the full power of sync, which is lifting side effects into effects. But now I also need a functor because I need to use the map method, and I also know that I'll need a monad to call this instance method, so I'm going to add that here. So monad also contains functor, so we are good. And I think I can remove the import now. There's another case which is very similar to this, except here I will need also monad error throwable, which is actually monad throw. And I can change this with ref make and monad throw. And now we'll have some imports to clean up, so monad error and sync. And yeah, I have sync here, which is necessary, and I have another sync here to lift a side effect. This is a set on an atomic reference, which is here. I should actually have a type annotation for this because it's a public symbol. And yeah, this is basically it. So at this point, if you've migrated your sources so that they compile and everything compiles, and you have the right versions of your dependencies. By the way, one more way to check if you have all the same versions. If you're not sure if you're on an older version of SBT, like 1.4 maybe, then there's another task you can use. You can use, let's wait for it to import or to reload. So another way to check this is if you run the evicted task. This will show you which versions of a library were removed in favor of a newer version and how. So this is pretty much the same thing, except it's not an error. And the most suspicious ones will be in yellow. Others will be on the info level. This will be on the warn level. And also you can use dependency list to see all the libraries that we have. This is from the SBT dependency graph plugin, which is now built into SBT. There is something that you need to turn on if you want the full power. For example, what depends on let's say org type level cats effect 213, and then you'll see like you will have tab completion for the versions, or be able to just see the tree of your dependencies. So for this you need to enable the plugin in your SBT build. I'll leave a link in the description to tell you how to do it. And yeah, so you can use these SBT tools to inspect whether you have any other conflicting dependencies. So yeah, at this point, if you followed all of this, if you are sure that your code compiles, you can run your tests. You can do all the usual testing phases that you do in your project, run it in some testing environment and so on, and eventually go to production. This is it. There is not really much else to do here from the source code part. There are some changes to the semantics. For example, cancellation is now more reliable, but I don't think there should be any behavior that will be like surprising in a way that will actually break anything in your code. In any case, you can start with the migration guide. Link in the description. You should be seeing it on the screen right now. And yeah, if you have any issues with it, you can ask for help on the Discord. We have a Discord now on the type level Discord. And yeah, you can also ask comments here in the video if you have any questions about this specific migration. So yeah, I encourage you to upgrade because it's a really great new version, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.